Welcome again, everyone, and thank you for listening to our first exciting episode, Transition to School. This podcast will be in a two-part episode as we've got a lot to get through, actually. So today's episode will be covering the school entry age and different skill set to confidently transition to school, as well as lots of tips and activities to build and develop onto those skills as well. So our second episode in this series will cover choosing the right school and what you can do to help your child before they start school, settling in, and those dreaded school lunches. So stick around, and by the end of the show, we are confident that you'll be ready to make a positive decision on, is my child ready for big school?
Okay, some of you have already been through this and some of you are just taking that first step towards your child's education journey. But one question, which as a parent I asked myself when my son went to school was, is my child ready for big school? How about you, Chantel, when Paris was going off to school?
Well, Paris was... her birthday's the 1st of March, so she could have gone either way, but she had a few speech issues, so her speech therapist really strongly advised for us to hold her back, which I'm actually so grateful that I did, because, I obviously, never regretted doing that, because also it wasn't just so much in those junior years, it was more in the later years, because Paris turned 18 just as COVID hit, so she was doing a HSC that year. So, so I think she actually handled that quite well, and that, so I know with me, I was a June child, and there were a lot of challenges, not so much in the junior school, it was more in the senior school.
Same here.
Like friends hitting the nightclubs and having a strict dad, and he's like, no way you're going to the nightclub. So all those sort of kind of challenges with driving and stuff like that. So what about you? Because you had Jaden that was a May child.
Yes, a May child. So I kept him back, but look, it's clear, and we all know this, that boys don't develop academically in the school, or the interest in academics as girls do. But it was a no-brainer keeping Jaden back, because the school entry was he could go to school, being that you could turn 5
up to July the
31st, yes, and Jaden was a May child. But I'm glad I did. It was the best thing I did in the sense of keeping Jaden, because once he got to high school, he was at a perfect mature age to participate in what was happening in the high school journeys of going up. So, that's look, a lot of it's personal choice, but at the same time, some people don't have a choice in that sense, especially in the states that you live in. Like in Australia, we have various school entries in different states.
Yeah, which is a little bit crazy.
It's ridiculous, actually. We're in the country and we're all studying at different states. But and also another thing is that in different states, there's different names for the first year of primary, like prep in Queensland, and here in Sydney, Australia, is kindergarten. Yeah. So again, too, that's the other thing that I had to think about also too with my other children starting school. When I moved up from Sydney to Queensland, it was prep as such. But what's interesting is that how the rest of the world operates with their school entry. Yeah. We've got most European countries have a compulsory starting age at 6, which is, a little bit older than that 4.5, 5-year-old. The UK, their younger starting age is 5, and in Northern Ireland, the lowest compulsory starting age is from 4 years and 2 months.
Okay, that's pretty young though, I think. And I think that's it's a bit of a challenge for a lot of the families. And like you said, it is a personal preference as to what you do. And we're not here to make anyone feel bad about sending, not sending, and what have you. It's just an open opinion on realistically, like what we've seen in the past as well. So with the ages.
Exactly. And if you've got that opportunity, just like I had and like Chantel had, by keeping your child back that year, it's the best thing for them, because you've got to look in the long run of when they enter their higher school levels schooling.
Yeah, I don't think, like you said, you've heard that people, in all honesty, I've never heard anyone regret not sending them and holding them back. There's always the fear as, will they be bored and what have you, which there's some things that we'll chat about later on in the podcast as well. So.
Yeah. Look, one school that really one country that really sort of I sort of stood back thinking, wow, which is mandatory in Finland. The experts feel that children should start school at the age of 7, and that's what their mandatory starting date is, because they feel that a 7-year-old is then eager to learn at that age.
Yeah, but so's mum's eager to get that child out of the house by then.
That was quite interesting.
I don't think that one's going to pass here, let me tell you.
Hey, so guys, it would be great. I'd love to hear from you. So if you could tell me wherever you are in the world, if you could put in the comment box below, what age is your school entry in your country? We would love to know that. So give us a comment about that.
Yeah. Okay. Also, before we move on, just a reminder that you'll find all our fact sheets and some free downloads on our website. And also you can email us on info@educatordiaries.com.au as well. So just keep that in mind, that if you want to get in contact with us, they're 2 ports of call. So
fantastic. Yes. Look, we're talking about transition into school, and speaking from the country that we're from, which is Australia, according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, the transition to primary school, they state that children who experience a positive transition into their new environment are likely to be happy at school and continue to improve their social and academic skills. So virtually everyone that is part of that child's life is responsible in transition, I believe. It, like you've said before, it takes a village.
Yeah, that's right. That's a big thing, and it's such a positive thing. And in a country like Australia, you know, we hope that lots of people can call on friends and families and grandparents and guardians and what have you to help with that. And realistically, we do have many children in this country that are going to childcare or some form of care or early learning centre. So that relationship between those families and those educators is huge, and it's, you know, will really help with their well-being, not just neurotypical children, but children even on the spectrum entering school, any children with additional needs. That community and that communication and relationship between, you know, your early childhood service and families is really, really important, because they can give you some really good guidance on helping your child getting ready to school. And because it's a two-way street. Like a lot of the times parents think, oh, the preschool, I'm going to send them to preschool, I'm going to send them here, I'm going to send them there, they can do all the work for me. It doesn't. It comes through a relationship with both parties. And there's so much, even for those people who may not have access to childcare, may not be able to, could afford childcare, there's lots of things that hopefully by listening to us that we can give you some of those skill sets to help your child get ready for school as well. So
that's right. Well, one skill set that I see all the time, and that's overlooked, but which is so crucial, is a child's compliance behaviour. It's so important that these behaviours of looking, sitting, listening and waiting, these boxes, if they're ticked before your child goes off to transition to school, well, then your child's got an easy, smooth transition.
Well, I guess they're the foundations for learning on top of them.
That's
like without
right.
those, your child's not going to learn if they're running around a classroom. Your child's not going to learn if they, you know, sometimes can't maintain that eye contact or that concentration with an educator or a teacher as well. So
looking, giving your child, opportunities where they're actually sitting down with you, looking at you, talking to you. You're covering the time of them sitting. You're looking at the focus of them waiting to have a conversation. You're waiting for you to tell them what to do next, whether it be in a childcare environment, whether it be at home. Like Chantel said, not all children go to preschool childcare, so this can still be done in the home environment, regardless of the child, neurotypical or on the spectrum. These sort of crucial compliance behaviours are so important for them to have that their self-esteem and confidence when they move on to school. So that's the first step that I would be looking at to ensure a smooth transition.
Yeah, and then like you said, from there you can build on to the more common skill sets, such as, for instance, like language. So when we're talking about school readiness and transition to school with language, we want to look at the listening, the speaking, the reading and the writing. And again, what this podcast is about is not just saying, okay, you need to have this and this before they go to school. It's like, okay, they might need this. This is how you can achieve it and how you can help support your child get those skills before they go to school. Because like you said, it just makes their transition so much easier. So, just making sure, does your child answer or ask simple questions using when, how, and why? which we all know, that. But Mum, why?
But why?
But why?
Because.
So, and sometimes we go, I don't want to answer anymore. But you're actually really helping develop a really crucial skill there with your child. They're inquisitive, they're asking those questions and gaining that knowledge from you, regardless if it's frustrating at the time and you're trying to get stuff done. But that's actually a really good skill for them to be developing as well. So
yes, and also not forgetting another part of the language area of skill sets that a child needs to have, especially, this happens in a childcare environment or in the home, that you find yourself giving your child related and unrelated step directions, whether it be go and get your hat, come and sit on the chair, and let's put your shoes on. Provide those opportunities for your children, because they'll extend on that when they go off to school.
Yeah. So you'd hope that around this age, before they go to school, that they could actually follow probably at least 3-step directions. Just throw out 3 different instructions and see whether or not they can follow it. Some fun games that you can play with your child, the whole "What's the time, Mr. Wolf?" and that's a really easy one that I know at the preschool. The children love that one. They've got to stand there, they've got to wait for the instruction, then they've got to count the steps, and then, they're waiting for that anticipation to get up to the wolf and run away and what have you. So always trying to find fun, because as we know, children learn through play, and that is a really, really important way of teaching them these skills as well. So
and also we look at once your child goes off to school, the nurturing that they would have got at kindy or at childcare, the nurturing is still there at school, but there's a gap in the sense of the support that your child will be getting. So it's important that you encourage your child to verbalise their needs.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've had, children even at the preschool that I've looked over and, they might be sweating, and it's like, are you hot? Yes. Do you want me to take your jumper off? Yes. So hopefully by the time they're ready to go to school, they're the ones saying, I'm hot, take my jumper off.
I need help.
Yes, because in a playground, there's 1 to I don't know how many children in a playground compared to obviously those childhood
Exactly.
And parents, realistically, you might think, well, why didn't anyone take my child's jumper off? Sometimes those teachers just don't get that opportunity, and those children who don't verbalise and don't, command that attention are the ones that sometimes are left behind as well. So your child could be so academically smart, but if they can't put their hand up, or they don't have the confidence, or they don't have the language skills to say, I need help, then they're going to fall behind as well. So
Okay. Well, so as we move on to our social skills and self-help skills.
Yeah. So this is probably one of the biggest the biggest, most area. I actually think it's probably one of the most important ones, because like we were just talking about the jumper story, self-help skills, making sure that your child can get dressed and undressed independently, because in schools, teachers aren't allowed in the bathrooms.
No,
they're not allowed to be touching your child, like you would in a childcare centre to help them, even with their shoes and, like you said, jumpers in the bathrooms and what have you. So you really want to make sure that they can wipe their own bottom, washing their own hands and things like that.
Even changing, because that there's different things that happen at school with different events, whether it be PE, whether it be swimming that they have, able to change themselves, able to tie their own shoelaces. Many kids that I've seen in the playground running around with their shoelaces undone, and that's just
yeah, definitely. I would probably also say one of the really big things that I would say to parents moving, like when they're starting school just beforehand, is also think about road safety awareness. So this is one thing that we try and promote a lot, like in the childcare centres. We always talk about road safety, but we need parents as well and families to take your child across a crossing, to make them aware, especially if your school is on a main road or near a car park, because children, a lot of the time, some schools don't have the car parks, mum's got to park down the road, or dad's got to park down the road, or grandma, and then walk the child up. So really making them aware of road safety issues and holding someone's hand, and practice with the backpack on them with, no, you've still got to hold my hand, we've got to get to here, and understanding about road safety. That's a really, really important self-help skill as well. So
look, another skill also that's so important, which is the step before a child writing their name, is recognising their name. At school they'll have their name up on a locker, or they'll they'll have their name at their table, or name, when a teacher holds up their work, or it's so important that a child recognises their name, which I know that's one thing, the main thing that happens in childcare where...
Yeah, it's that whole sense of well-being, isn't it? And belonging, really. Like we're always talking about belonging, and that is how, a child feels like they belong, and that because if they can recognise that little bit of part of themselves in the classroom as well.
In their jumpers, parents, I know I had to do that with my kids, do the iron-on name tags and things inside clothes, inside shoes. When you've got a whole classroom of 32 children with all jumpers taken off, you've got to be able to go recognise your name to know that's your jumper, as they're all the same.
Yeah, and sometimes children can become quite upset when they, feel like that they've missed, part of, like their jumper or what have you. I'm going to get in trouble from, a parent or what have you. So, but also another really big social skill that that you'd want your child to have developed by this age is sharing adults' attention with several other children. I get it, sometimes if children are an only child, that's a hard skill for them to have achieved because they're not sharing mum and dad's attention or grandma and grandpa's attention, and that. So even little things like that is trying to network with other mums in social settings, whether it be playgroup or what have you, to see and hopefully, let your child know that they've got to actually share the attention with other children, because in a classroom setting, it's not one-on-one, and it's unrealistic to have that one-on-one.
Exactly. And it's quite disheartening sometimes when you've got and children, the way they react is, if I'm not going to get attention, I'm going to display negative behaviour, and that means they either have a meltdown, and that's just a way of saying I'm not coping. I'm not coping because I'm not getting that attention. So providing experiences where children have to sort of, wait and respect one another, because that's one thing, that I used to promote with the kids that we work with, that we respect one another when we're talking, when we're listening to others. And when you can imagine a whole classroom of 32 children all at once chatting, that would be mind-blowing for the teacher, let alone for the child, or little Johnny sitting in the corner thinking, how can I be known that I'm here? As such. But
and so don't also, another thing, don't forget about recognising their own possessions and packing them away as well. So, that's a great help to those teachers out there, I think, if those children know how to pack up their own belongings. So all these things that you buy for your child before they go to school, like whether it be the lunch boxes, whether it be the hats, the shoes, whatever, before they go to school, have a practice run with these things. Have a practice run with that lunchbox, that Fandangle lunchbox that you've bought.
That's
right. That your child can actually open that lunchbox up. Do they know how to open up those little packets of, whether it be like, I don't know, chips or muesli bars and things like that they're taking to school. So, because I know as parents sometimes we get so excited about packing all these things in their lunchboxes, but, you've got to be realistic. Are they actually going to be able to get it open themselves and that? So,
and that probably takes us on to fine motor skills for that.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's an important part.
It's sad to see that this generation moving forward, a lot of young children have poor fine motor skills because, unfortunately, our fingers at the moment are just always on iPads.
Yep.
And they haven't built that muscle up within their hands as such. And doing little self-help skills like opening up your own little packet of goodies that you get for lunch can be a difficult task and overwhelming. So those sort of skills, practice those skills.
So there's lots of different things that you can actually use to help develop, their fine motor skills. So I know as parents we're like, I don't want to get the scissors out. I'll leave that for the preschool to do, because it is probably one of those things that you have to supervise, and that because I'm probably lucky. My kids have never cut their hair. Have your kids ever?
I don't even go there, Jaden. Oh, goodness me. One day we found him in the bathroom and he was cutting chunks of hair out of his hair. And, oh, my goodness. But, look.
Yeah, so you didn't supervise him. Getting back to it, is that what we're saying? So, just make sure that...
we had good fine motor skills then. But in saying that, when they enter a classroom and the teacher's giving them a task, it's cut out the picture and paste it in your book. And
so much cutting. Like that was the one thing when I was doing reading groups with my kids. I was like, are you serious? Like all this paper everywhere, and then trying to, figure out whose was who. And reading groups, that's another podcast, I tell you. So even get them using scissors, even if it's just cutting up magazines, an old magazine, get them sitting out in the backyard and just chopping away, trying to cut around someone's, face or eyes or whatever, and then you can then upgrade them to like cutting on a line continuously and things like that. So there's scissor skills are actually really, really important.
And hand in hand that goes with that is using a variety of tools, writing tools, pencils, textures. They're all got a different sort of,
shape and size
to them. So and paintbrushes.
Yeah.
So important for your child to be exposed to that.
Well, I guess that's all your pre-writing skills. I know so many parents out there are like, they can write this and they can do that. I want them to write all their ABCs and blah, 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 blah. But before they even get to that, you've got to go back to those scribbles. Those scribbles are important. Let them write in the birthday cards to, grandma, grandpa and all the rest of it.
Exactly.
Don't let them scribble on the walls again, I think I had one of those. I think Paris had her name written all over the walls at home. So let them play, like let them have all those
and I suppose, look, and that happens every day in a childcare environment and preschools as such. They provide those experiences, which is wonderful, to extend on those skills. So
and little things. Another great tool that I used with my kids to help build up those muscles in their hands is just like the simple getting newspaper, getting them and scrunching it up and shooting it into a basket like a basketball game. So there's so many different little activities out there that they don't have to be a bought activity. They don't have to take a lot of time. It's just like, okay, it's recycling night. Well, you know what? I've got this paper here. Hey, such and such, just scrunch it up and chuck it in the bin for mum, will you? Keep going, and they're just those little simple activities that you can actually do with your child to really build up those fine motor skills and that. So, but it's a bit like gross motor too. Like, I know a lot of emphasis is always on those sitting down things in the classroom, but gross motor skills are important as well because children at school do a lot of like those PE sports and stuff like that as well.
Exactly. So, getting a child, there's nothing worse than a child who's not physically active, participating in PE, which is compulsory in all schools.
Well, that you can see some of those children, that's when they start to lack a bit of confidence as well. So it's not about them being great at the sport. It's just about them. You want them just to participate because, again, it also ties into those social skills because when they're going out into the playground and all the kids are playing, okay, well, what do we want them to do? We want them, to, be confident running. We want them to, like be able to walk up and down stairs at school without falling down and showing that they're, uncomfortable doing those things. But, even just by playing some simple games in the backyard with your kids, just kick a ball to them, just throw a ball to them, roll a ball to them,
Exactly. Catching different size balls, from tennis balls to basketballs. To soft beach balls, that's just all different activities to extend on that gross motor.
Yeah, so again, the gross motor skills you hopefully, they can achieve like quite easily as well. So, but like even like moving on to say cognitive skills, this is probably the area that a lot of parents do focus on thinking that, my child can do this and this, so they are definitely ready for school and that, which is not always the case because like I said before, some parents in the past said, but if I hold them back, they're so ready, they're going to be bored. And I was like, I remember I had a little boy at the preschool who was very academically smart. Socially, no. But academically, he, was amazing at puzzles, could do these picture puzzles like there was no tomorrow. So in the end, by the end of the year, he was doing 100-piece puzzles, like those tiny little jigsaw puzzles. And we actually got him to show a group of other children how to do this puzzle. So it wasn't just about the cognitive skill, it was about his social skills, building them up there as well.
Exactly. So, that's so important. Social and emotional skills are so important because it doesn't matter how academic you are. If you don't have your social and emotional skills, well then a child...
Everything else will fall down.
Everything will fall down. And self-esteem is the biggest thing with children and you can't sort of, dismiss that as being a priority over a child sitting there knowing the ABC 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, definitely.
But when we talked about some, some writing skills and so forth, which comes under our cognitive thinking, is beginning to write their own name.
Yeah, that's probably one of the first things because, like you said, that's pretty much one of the first things a lot of the teachers will get them to do in the classroom is to write their own name, because realistically in a lot of schools there are a lot of stencils and things like that, so they need to start to label those things we butt heads against with childcare and school readiness programs. Unfortunately, I know the system that's in place in childcare is that you can't provide that full-on school readiness where children are learning phonics and simple maths, basic maths. But you can, but not in a formal way. It's not to be done through stencils. It's done, which, don't get me wrong, I'm all for going through play, and you can do lots of those things through play.
Oh, most definitely.
The only thing is that when they do go into a lot of kindergartens, a lot of those, some schools are moving towards it, which is awesome, but a lot of them are still, you're sitting at the table and you're doing this stencil. In saying that, I've had children in the past that actually do love doing a colouring in, or they do love a stencil. But I guess you've got to find the balance,
exactly.
So it can go hand in hand.
Exactly. Both have got to work hand in hand together, and providing those opportunities at home. Like I said, your child doesn't necessarily have to be at childcare or preschool to be doing this.
Oh, no, especially with the cognitive stuff. Kmart, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Get a plug for Kmart.
They've got some awesome activities for children to get ready, which covers phonics and numbers, counting, writing, tracing.
Yeah, like one of the other things that I've done in the past, because again, when you're working in a childcare centre, you get very savvy with developing resources, is like little things like, say, sorts objects according to categories. Like that's a really big skill going into school, like a cognitive skill. So even like sorting socks and that, get your kids
Simple.
out there.
Yeah.
Here you go. You can sort the socks for mum and dad, and that. So, and then you can even move to, say, a higher skill set of sorting objects that belong with each other.
Yes.
So you can even have, okay, we've got stuff from the kitchen, we've got stuff from
the bathroom,
what goes in what pile, and things like that. So there's lots of things that you can actually do to help develop those skills, and that it doesn't have to cost you any money as well. So even like when it comes to shapes, like identifying differences in shapes. I used to play a shape game. I used to put like a shape in each quarter, and then I'd draw a card and say run to this shape, and that is, if you've got a few children, obviously they can play together, and it can almost be like a musical chairs thing or something like that.
Yes, because once they get to school, they extend from 2D shapes to 3D shapes.
Yeah, so shape recognition is still really important as
very
well.
important, very important. But,
same with colours and things like that. So, again, sometimes with colours it's just a matter of even having those conversations, those rainbow songs, which you would hope by this age that they know at least 4 to 6 colours before they go to school as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look, another area too is demonstrating the concept of opposites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the up, down, under and over.
Or different prepositions. Which it's an everyday language. Go and sit underneath the veranda. Go and put this up on the shelf. All that sort of language for a child to understand.
Yep.
Is so crucial. So just playing simple games at home. You know.
Yep.
Go and get me the block under the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put your hat on top of the shelf.
Yeah.
Go and put your shoes under your bed.
And sometimes these are some of the, like when some schools do have the interviews and that before they go, and these are some of the conversations that those teachers will have with the children before they start school as well. They just want to know if has developed those concepts and understandings, and even really like books are such a big thing for children to like you can read to your child. That really ticks the language box. Cognitive skills, asking them, different things that are in the books, seeing if they're turning the pages from left to right and understanding the sequence of events again in the books. If you can spend, time and with your child reading.
Look,
then,
every night. I did that every night with my children, every night. 10 minutes. 10 minutes reading every night, reading them a story when they got into bed. That was my time that I chose to do reading. Just doing 10-minute reading every night.
Because they're even looking at symbols and that. So sometimes they may not be able to read the word, but they're looking at the symbols that represent words. They understand that all those squiggles on a page mean words.
Exactly.
Same with even if you're out in the supermarkets and things like that. Even pick up something and say, like there could be something with an apple on it, and they're starting to recognise that apple goes with that word and what have you. Yep. So symbols are a really big part in pre-reading and writing skills as well. So
that's Well, I think we've covered quite a bit here today under these areas of skill sets for your child transitioning. And like Chantel mentioned before, have a look on our website.
Yeah, there's a really good checklist from the New South Wales government on there about things that, I think it's a checklist of skills that your child should have before they start school as well. And like I said, reconnect, make sure that you have a chat to your educators, the educators at your child's centre. They see a different thing than what you do sometimes too. As parents, I've had, a child who couldn't recognise numbers, I remember, and the mum's like, they definitely can because on the Foxtel remote, they know where number 9 is and da-da-da. But sometimes they learnt things in different environments as well, and what they might show to you could be different to how they show it to us. So just keep that in mind as well, that sometimes when your teachers have come to you and you go, oh, no, they can definitely do that at home. Well, you know what? Maybe it's not in the same environment. It's a different environment that they're not showing those skills.
And look, I'm a very strong believer all children learn and develop their skills at their own level. It doesn't mean because they're 5 they should be knowing this.
No, that's right. So sometimes the age thing, But
I believe exposing opportunities and experiences to children. Children are like sponges. Their brains are like sponges. They take everything in, and when the time's right, they know when to use that knowledge that they've experienced.
Yeah.
So
a lot of the time, like we said, it's giving the opportunity and the maturity and time to develop those skills before they go to school. So, but anyway, the next podcast that will continue on from this,
we'll be talking about some helpful tips to help you make your child's first day at school as easy as possible, which is quite an overwhelming time when you are choosing a school for your child. So we'll have a good look at that, as well as the settling in process for those children, with especially the separation anxiety. A lot of parents experience and a lot of children experience.
Yeah.
It works both ways. But and lastly, those dreaded lunch boxes.
Yes, that's right. We'll hopefully give you some tips on what you can put in those lunch boxes as well. So
thanks once again for listening in to this podcast today. And as Chantel said, look out for our next podcast that we will be extending from this one. So,
so as we leave you today, be grateful for where you are and excited for where you're headed.
Bye now.
See you guys. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.